dedicated.
Serving with integrity and professionalism. Elgin became an incorporated city in 1854 and installed its first police marshal, George W. Renwick. Over the years, the title of the head law enforcement officer changed from marshal to chief. And although the role has expanded, one duty has remained consistent: to ensure law and order for the citizens of Elgin.
It's time now for Fridays with the Finest, featuring Elgin's current police chief, Anna Lalley, on Elgin's hometown radio station since 1949, WRMN AM 1410 and 96.7 FM.
All right, it is time for Fridays with the Finest. Here on this Friday morning, my phone is ringing.
Very nice tone. Very relaxed.
Thanks. You like that?
It's very smoothing.
It's my new ringtone. My new phone.
Not an iPhone.
No. I wish I would have got an iPhone. Because the guy at the AT&T store talked me into a Google Pixel 8. Said that's what the kids are using these days. And I said, well, I can be a kid. Why don't I try that too? Fridays with the Finest. I guess I'll turn my volume down. Welcome to the show. We have Chief Anna Lalley with us on a Friday morning from the Elgin Police Department. And Chief, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. A little frazzled.
Yeah, I can
tell. A lot going on. Fridays get kind of crazy around here.
Got to chill out a little bit. Take it easy.
Yeah? Well, that's why you're here, to calm me down.
I will calm you down. Yes, yes.
How are things going?
Good, very good.
Yeah?
I'm here. Got a lot of information to talk about some of the shooting cases.
Yeah.
I know that you guys were talking about earlier in the week. I was prompted by Larry that I was going to get asked about the shooting, so I appreciate Larry. And I heard that he's not going to be here for too much longer.
I know, you're going to miss him, aren't you?
I am. I truly am.
I know. You guys could relate to each other.
I can relate to him, and I appreciate his service. I appreciate what he has done in terms of, when he was a police chief. It's a unique job. We'll just say that.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's a gentleman, nice guy. So
I mean, I could just tell sometimes when you and him were talking, like off the air, you're like nodding. You're like, yeah, you get it.
He does get it.
You understand.
Yes, he gets it.
This Mark guy doesn't know what the heck's going on.
No. It's just different, right? I appreciate you too, Mark. It's just different, right?
I got it.
He's very. I mean, I met him through the show, right? Just in passing here.
Yeah.
So, but I appreciate his viewpoint, and so you need to get a partner.
I guess.
Yeah. What does that mean?
Well, because it's hard to replace Larry.
It is. It's very hard to. It will be. Yeah.
His knowledge mixed with his sense of humor.
Yes.
A nice combination.
Yes.
His experience.
Yeah. You better put out some job applications, do some interviews, see who you can get.
I'm checking Indeed.com every day.
All right.
See who's applying.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
You want a job? Another job?
Wait till I retire. I'll come be your partner.
You will?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Why not? All right, so let me talk a little bit about some stuff going on first, and then we'll get into some of the shooting investigations and answer. Again, if people want to call in, if they have any questions, please call.
Yeah.
So I want to first say thank you to Joanne Stingley and her group. So they were here last week on Friday, and we were talking about everything with domestic violence awareness, and then just in terms of resources. And then we had our domestic violence walk on Saturday, and probably maybe 200 people were there, I'm guessing.
Was it that many? I saw the picture.
Yeah, it was, and it was actually bigger than last year. So, which is, last year was her first year, and so this is the second year. So I imagine that event 10 years from now is just going to be, people are walking. When you're walking with people, though, you're talking, right? You're talking about, whether it's their stories and being able to provide resources or just being someone to, hear and listen. A lot of times people, as Joanne talks about all the time, the trauma that people are going through, and they will show that in very different ways. So sometimes when someone is displaying certain behaviors, it's not necessarily because they want to, right? So when you sit there and you get to know people and talk and just have that very visual display for our community that we are here for people regardless of, whenever you need help, we're here. So I want to say thank you to her because she does a lot, and her group does a lot. I want to say thank you to all those ladies, all our community partners too as well.
So the people that were out there walking are not, you feel like they're not just out there walking because they're supporting Domestic Violence Awareness Month. They were there because a lot of them were there because they've actually experienced it in their lives.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
the feeling you got? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can just tell you, with private conversations, I'm not gonna talk about it, obviously, but they're yes, I mean, it's a very I guess it's just to be there for people when you don't expect that you would need to be there for a person, right? Like it's just one of those things where people will gravitate towards where they feel that they can be heard, that they're not judged, and that there's truly support and care, right? There's just so much just divisiveness and in the world and people arguing and everything's a big problem. It's like just sometimes I think if people would just really truly just take the time to get to know each other. We can not agree on things, that's fine. We could have different viewpoints, that's fine. But when people put aside those differences and truly work towards something and provide support for people, you'd be amazed at things that can get done. So thank you, Joanne, for what you do. She has a very hard job. All those ladies have a very hard job.
Yeah.
So I wanted to just mention that.
I want before you move
sure.
on but I guess even before cashless bail, those committing acts of domestic violence, we're still bonding out.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So it hasn't changed that much because I was going to say just an incident of domestic violence, which could be very scary to the victim if it's truly a one-sided domestic violence situation. One of the scariest things they have to go through, I would imagine, is after the person that's been the suspect, I guess, gets locked up, they get released so quickly. And so the next day they could be out again and you could be scared, wondering if they're going to come back again for more.
Yeah. I mean, there's, stipulations put by the judge, a 72-hour rule, no contact. People can get order of protections. There's things that you can do to at least provide a sense of comfort. But what you just described, the not knowing part, right? That is a true feeling for some victims. And that's very hard to just tell people, well, just get over it. And you should be doing this. It's nobody imagine the time in your life where you've been some very stressful thing and, people will give you advice from 20 different ways and you'll listen to it, but truly you're the person that has to decide what you want to do for yourself. So the advice is nice and the support, but it's give the support in a way where people can, not feel like if they don't do something, then it's, making it worse for them. You have to be very understanding and very, I think, sensitive to the dynamics of domestic violence.
Yeah.
And I think Joanne has talked about it over and over and over again. And, she talks about a community. And, when you walked in, when you said to her, you have all these people with you, and she said, yeah, because it takes all these people. I mean, you're just talking numbers wise because we're trying to figure there's no philosophical message in there, right? You're just talking about microphones.
Yeah.
But when she thinks about it, it's like we need all these people. We need people in the community to just be advocates, listen, and provide that sense of, hope for someone. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, to think that, we're walking through Elgin, it's a Saturday morning, it was a beautiful day. There is no doubt that somebody who is experiencing something saw that and maybe something clicked, right? Like you never know. So I think sometimes we, don't take for granted the small things that we might do, or we say, well, it's a walk and people are out there to support. It's like, you never know how that action will help. Somebody's driving by and they're thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do here. And wow, I see all these people. Maybe I will reach out because I don't feel embarrassed. So I think that's why we do it. It's more the bigger picture in life, right? It's more of that.
I guess I was just thinking about that because I know that you you like to talk about the Elgin Police Department.
Yes.
You don't like to give your opinions.
None of my business.
And you probably don't like to talk about you don't want to talk about your opinions about cashless bail and things like that. But I saw a story earlier this week that and you may have seen the story. I think maybe it was in Palatine.
Okay.
Someone was arrested they were called to the house for a domestic situation, and the person was going to be arrested for domestic battery.
Okay.
And while being, in the process of arresting this person for domestic battery, that suspect spit on the police and punched the police. And so then it became more charges. That person was taken down and booked and released. And I thought, two people mad here, the person that was the victim of domestic violence and the police, because they had to go make this arrest and then boom, the person's right back out there again. You know?
It's a very frustrating thing, and I think when we started talking about this a couple of years ago with the Safety Act, we as police officers, we have to adapt. Laws are made. People, legislators make laws. This is what the people want, and so at some point, we have to adapt. We have to provide service regardless of the parameters that we have to work in. We have to provide professional service, and that's the philosophy that we take, right? So it's frustrating. There's no doubt it's frustrating. It's frustrating, but I think that's a given. It's when you hear those stories, you're right. Yes, there's many people that are impacted by it, and I guess the first question I would say is, why is it happening to begin with, right? So I think that's where you have to look more past, that incident and talk about what's happening. Can we solve some of these problems? So that's why we do some of the programs that we do. CCSU is in place because we kept going to calls over and over and over again where people were in a mental health crisis. We're just there, Band-Aid, hours at the call, right? Call out a SWAT team. It's a barricaded. You have to think a little bit differently in terms of we have to hit the underlying issue, right? Does this person need mental health services? Then they're not calling the police. Then the police are not involved where now they could be possibly exposed to getting spit on, and right? So it's so many layers. And I think, my perspective has always been to, try to as best as we can hit the root causes. That takes more time. It's very frustrating sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But somebody needs to start somewhere. We need to do something. Otherwise, you're just repeating the same thing over and over and over again, right? With nothing but frustration.
Kicking the can down the road, right?
And what's the point?
I mean, you've said the same thing about the homeless situation, right?
Yes. It's at some point, I think, when I brought the city manager on and, the mayor, and we had that conversation, you have to, and I think they're very vocal about what's happening in Elgin, what the position and the direction that they're going in to have a long-term solution, right? So that 30 years from now, and I've said this all the time, 30 years from now, who's ever sitting in this seat, if this show is still going on, if you're still here, if, I don't want the police chief to have to sit and have that discussion, right? So I think, again, it's definitely, it takes a lot of work, but, one step at a time. Baby stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. So, all right. So let me get to did you have anything else? I didn't want to.
No, I want you to use your notes because I hate it when that happens. I prepare stuff and I don't get to it on the show.
Yeah, no worries. So I just want to make sure I hit a couple things. Real quick, too, next week on Friday, I will have Sergeant Miriam Duffy here with me. Next Saturday is Nightmare on Chicago Street.
Yeah.
So she will be here. We are in planning mode. We have been in planning mode. So I'll have her on the show just talking about some things to do, not do. We always put this out to the community. If you're going to show up to this event, don't bring in props, weapons, things that are right. And every single year, people bring it. So don't do it. Parking is going to be tight, right? So make sure that you understand where you can park. The city has a bunch of stuff on their Facebook page. All next week, we'll be pushing out information. So, if you're not coming to the event, and you don't want to be frustrated with traffic, there's some other routes that you can take. So she will be here next Friday with me talking about it.
Okay.
So let's talk about the shots fired incidents that we had and give everyone an update in terms of crime stats. So the most recent, and I'll talk about the most recent 3 incidents. The first one was October 4th at 10:04 p.m. That was the 400 block of Ann Street. Report again of shots fired. We show up. Yes, we confirm that that did in fact happen. That was at 10:04 p.m. And then at 11:23, we were responded to the 600 block of St. Charles for a reported shooting. And when we arrived, we located evidence of gunfire. And while they were officers are investigating that incident, we had an adult male arrive at the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries, and we confirmed that those 2 incidents were tied together.
Oh, really?
Yes.
The Ann Street incident and the St. Charles Street?
St. Charles and the person walking into the hospital.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that is still under investigation. So no updates on that as of today. And then the most recent one was on October 5th in the 1200 block of Fleetwood. We arrived for a reported shooting. When we arrived on scene, there was an adult male with a gunshot wound, transported to a local hospital for care. The major investigations detectives arrived on scene. All parties are known to each other and have been accounted for. And so with that being said, we will provide any update when that becomes available. But as of now, all the parties involved in the incident have been identified and the investigation is ongoing. So there are no updates as of today.
What does accounted for mean? I mean,
We're not, the people involved in the incident.
you know who
we
was
don't.
involved with the
Yes,
incident.
Exactly. And then we're just trying to determine and figure out what happened. So it's going to take a little bit of time.
Certainly there's going to be an arrest made at some
There
point,
could,
right?
there could not, but if we do
Yeah.
make the arrest, again, that's part of the investigation. We'll make sure to update the public and let people know. But in terms of that case, we're not looking for any more information from the public or from the community. So with that incident on October 5th, that puts us at 55 shots fired incidents for the year, which we are 3 over where we ended last year. Last year, we ended at 52 incidents. So I want to talk a little bit about those 55 incidents. And again, especially over the next couple months here as we finalize our crime stats, give information to the community about where we're at, what we're looking. Last year at this time in 2023, we were at 42 incidents.
Okay.
And we are at 55. So that's a 31% increase from where we were. So that is not good.
No.
In terms of gunshot victims, last year at this time we had 15. This year we're at 12. So that's a 20% decrease. In our 55 cases year to date, in 25% of those cases, an arrest has been made. And I think that's important. 25% of our shots fired cases, we have a conclusion. 2% we closed for some other purpose where that's just one case. We close it out administratively. There's no further. So we further investigate and find out that it's not a shots fired or it's accidental or something more where we don't really, there's nothing more to do.
Yeah.
2 cases were closed because of the death of the offender. So those are the 2 murder-suicides that we had this year. 16 are still under investigation. So when we say under investigation, it means that detectives are following active leads. The case that I just talked about on Fleetwood, there's more work to do. They're still they could be waiting for evidence to come back from the lab. They could be still interviewing witnesses. They could be waiting for search warrants. So there's still some active, with the potential and hope that we do make some arrests in those cases.
Probably the two from last weekend then, right?
I'm not going to say for sure, right?
Okay.
They had to do their case, and I'm not going to let them do their investigation, but we will definitely know either way, right, if we charge or don't charge. And then 22 of those cases remain unsolved. And so when we say unsolved, that means we've exhausted all investigative measures. And really, it will only be solved if someone comes in and says, I did it, right? Or we find out other information. So,
But those are all just shots fired.
yes. Those are shots fired where we show up and there's a shell casing in the street or there's, property damage. So it's important, again, when we talk about the shots fired data to give the context to what's happening with the cases. I think last week I gave the 10-year kind of, where we were at. Our highest year to date was in 2021 was 66 shots fired. Our second highest year was 2016. Was 64 shots fired, and then in 2020 we had 63. So we are at 55 this year, and we are going to, again, the community, so that they know, detectives work very hard, doing directed patrols. We have a violent crimes group meeting where we talk about strategy. Some of these cases, people know each other. It's a, domestic related incidents or, personal relationships. Some of them we'll never know. Some of the unsolved cases where somebody truly just, we show up and there's a shell casing, we're never going to know. If we've exhausted all means, we don't know what the motive is for that case.
Yeah.
So I will continue to keep people updated in terms of, where we're at and case status.
We get comments every once in a while like, hey, shouldn't we be alarmed by this? Should it be more of it be made at like city council meetings and things like that? What could more of it being made at a city council meeting do about the situation? I mean,
I think, and again, that's people's perspectives. I provide my goal is to provide the information and then give some perspective in terms of what these cases are. If the city council, they are, I'm sure aware of what's happening, right? So every 2 months I send a council report to them with this information in terms of where we are with our crime data, just snapshots. In the past, some council people have reached out to me to ask questions. I'm always available. I mean, I was just at the council meeting on Wednesday talking about a new initiative that I want to maybe hit on before the end of the show. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's more of, maybe people want to know that people are in tune with what's happening. We are in tune. We know what's going on, right? We're putting strategies in place. We're attempting to hit it on every angle. We love when the community provides assistance. There's some incidents that, it becomes a question of whether the police could have stopped something like that from happening, So some of these cases we don't know, but I will, to assure the community, it's a priority. I mean, I talk about it every week. We, have officers and task forces. We have a strategy in place. So it's not like, I think sometimes when people want the council, if the council chose to say they want an update, okay. I mean, but I think they're, knowing what's happening, whether or not they choose to ask questions, that's, for them to decide.
Well,
right?
I mean, if someone was like, this is getting out of hand, we've got to do something, what would be that something?
I think if someone were to do that, I mean, I'd probably have to go to a council meeting and explain exactly what I'm explaining and give some perspective. Here are the cases. Here's the arrests we've made. These are the incidents. This is why this is happening. Here's our strategies in place. So anyone could do that. I mean, if they wanted to do that, that's totally fine. The fact of the matter of that, we talk about it every Friday when I can. Obviously, there's some other stuff that we're talking about, but, it's not something that we don't, I say every year, 0. Every year I've been saying it, 0. And then you give me a look like, right?
Well,
right. And I get that and I understand that. But see, if that's where the bar needs to be set, the community should not tolerate it. We need to make sure that we're doing everything can, which we are. The detectives work very, very hard. Officers work very hard. And we make arrests, right? I think that's the other thing, too, that a lot of times when arrests are made in cases, people may not necessarily, who may be very critical, may not necessarily acknowledge those arrests, right? So the purpose of putting that information out there so that people know the officers are working. We're working. We want to make arrests, right?
Oh, sure.
Of course we do. So
I just wonder, if there's a theory, if you, at the end of the year, hypothetically, let's just say there ends up being 70, and it's a new all-time high record.
Sure.
Do you go back and meet as a command staff or whatever and say, why? Is there a theory as to why suddenly there are more shots being fired in the city of Elgin than ever before?
We do that every Monday morning.
Yeah.
Yes. So that question or that, when you look at our crime stats, especially the shots fired, one year, and we talked about this, in 2019, we had 31 incidents. The lowest past another year, 2017 was 28 and 2019 was 31. And then in 2020, we doubled that. So what was going on in 2019 that it was so low? What's going on in 2020? The pandemic, right? We've talked about a lot of this stuff, right? So a lot of times it's national trends or it's, the temperament of society, of the community, right? Or what's happening in the world. So those questions are asked and that conversation is ongoing. This is the reason why we put our crime stats out every month. We don't wait to the end of the year and say, "Oh wow, look, we're looking like we're going to trend high in burglaries. We better do something." Every month we're talking about this. Crime stats are published to the community on our transparency page. So anyone can ask anything. We appreciate the feedback. I appreciate the questions. It's never taken in a the community absolutely has the right to ask whatever they want. And in turn, I'll make sure that I'm providing them the entire scope of what's happening, the entire picture of what's happening. So that conversation continues.
Okay. I'm just kind of curious, if in January of next year, would the police department say, hey, there were 70 shootings and here's why we think it's increased? There's suddenly more gang activity again in the city or something like that. And we have to start to clamp down on that again to reduce gang activity, if that's what the theory was.
I mean, I will tell you until we, when we look at a snippet of the shots fired, some of them are gang related. I think I gave the stats maybe a month or two ago about what we thought the percentage of in terms of, and those are when we know, right? So that's the other problem is the 20 shots fired that are unsolved. You have no... you cannot say with certainty that it's related to A, B, or C, right?
Yeah.
So those are the unknowns. But for the ones where we make arrests, what's going on, right? It's interpersonal violence or there's a gang tie. So you can make some of those statements based on facts, right? So at the end of the year, when we talked yesterday at a meeting with my command staff for our annual report. This year every year we talk about shots fired, but this year we're going to add a little bit of that. So the why part, give a little bit more detail in terms of these are the cases. And because I understand the community wants to know. And I think it's important, though, that things are kept in perspective, so that this is what's happening. This is what we're doing, and shots fired, if you go back 10 years, we're in the 60s, then we go down to 30. So there's a lot of dynamics in play in terms of why they're happening. So you just have to be fluid and ensure that we're adjusting our strategies.
Yeah. Okay.
So real quick, I have a few minutes. I want to mention one other thing too. So on Wednesday, I was at the city council, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, probably not next week because we're going to be talking about Nightmare, maybe the week after. So we are, looking to add to our rope program. I'll say that. So we introduced a concept of, right now we have 4 rope officers. We have 3 that live in homes, and 1 is our downtown rope officer, Alton Gallagher. He doesn't live in a house. So we do have an empty rope house on J Street, and that rope house has been empty for a couple of years. And so over the past couple of years, I've been having some conversations with Councilman Good, internal conversations, but we've decided to maybe on Wednesday, we kind of proposed a new updated version of rope, which is to do a roving tiny house rope program. So very quickly, we get a tiny house, and the concept, philosophy of rope, community engagement, putting it in the neighborhood, we can move this throughout the city. So for example, if we're having a bunch of shots fired in the neighborhood, put the tiny house there. It's a community hub. Officers do directed patrols out of there. Community members can come there. It's a very visible presence. So we pitched it at the council meeting, got support for it. So we're going to start doing our homework now because, obviously you have to make sure that people are on board with what we're trying to do here. So we're not, the rope program still remains. The rope program has been in place for over 30 years. But it's time to do a little bit of innovation, right? And so I think the thing is, innovation, as I said at the council meeting on Wednesday, innovation is what pushes organizations forward. And we have seen that with our CCSU unit, our ESD unit. When we talk about some of the things that we do, our youth empowerment program, those concepts, those ideas, those thinking a little bit, what can we do differently? And then you see the success of some of those programs. So more to come on that. I think there's going to be an article in the newspaper maybe over the weekend. So I wanted to make sure that, I talked about it here. Anyone's interested in the full presentation, just go back and watch the council meeting from Wednesday. And I'll talk a little bit more as we kind of move through this this process, which probably will take us, 4, 5, 6 months, depending on how we do it, having conversations and funding and how we're going to do it. But I wanted to mention that so people, if they see that in the newspaper this weekend, more information can be found at the council meeting.
So it'll be one tiny house that kind of roams around?
Yeah.
Different areas? Okay.
So, and also if you think about, we get a lot of citizen complaints for traffic, right? So on the far west side where people are, it's a traffic, it's not necessarily any other type of issue. We could put that house there and really kind of have that out there for a couple of weeks and very visible presence. And so there's a lot that you could do with it, right? So innovation, it's a good thing. Okay. So, okay. Well, I hope everyone has a good weekend. I will be back next week. And everybody stay safe.
All right, Chief. Thanks a lot. And have a great weekend yourself. Chief Anna Lalley, Fridays with the Finest. It's 9:29 here at WRMN.